I apologize if this is a little out of order tonight. We have some visitors from the high school, and we might pause when they all get here and go a little off the agenda to accommodate our kiddos that are coming tonight. All right, it is now 6:02, and we are out of closed executive session. At this time, we will reconvene the regular meeting of the Board of Education with the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brenner.
Here.
Mr. Bucher.
Here.
Mr. Herrera.
Here.
Mrs. Haug. Ms. Mayville.
Here.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Here.
Mr. Zickert.
Here.
Are there any items on the agenda any members of the board would like to amend or move? Hearing none, do I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda of the regular meeting of the Board of Education September 18th, 2023 as presented?
Second.
Member Mayville made a motion and Member Herrera seconded the motion to approve the agenda of the regular meeting of the Board of Education on September 18th, 2023 as presented. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mrs. Brenner.
Aye. Motion passed 6-0. At this time, we would like to celebrate our schools and individuals in the district. We'd first like to start with our Seth Whitman Elementary School, who's received their HRS Level 4 certification. I think we have some visitors here, if you'd like to please stand.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
Oh!
There we go. Yep.
Seth Whitman Elementary has had many exciting opportunities for students to learn, which include the dual language program, ABC special education classes, and departmentalized instruction. It was important to them to ensure the consistency of Level 4 was evident in all classrooms. In order to do that, they have had to continue to reevaluate all levels of HRS to ensure they were continuing to use their innovative strategies past COVID. HRS Level 4 has provided them guidance in propelling their school to new heights. Seth Whitman's passion for continuous improvement has not only elevated their school, but also enriched the learning experience for the students. We are immensely proud of your achievements. This Level 4 certification signifies the outstanding dedication to your team to fostering a culture of excellence in education. Congratulations again, Seth Whitman. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Shug. We have some folks in our district that have been nominated by their peers for going above and beyond. And when you hear your name called, if you'd come forward, and we have some cards to give you. Dr. Shug will read a little bit about you, and then we'll have you stay standing if you wouldn't mind so we can take your picture at the end for your recognition.
All right, we are going to start with Jenny Marie, instructional coach at Belvedere High School. Jenny helped me get through my first year of teaching. Her guidance and support went above and beyond, and I would like her to know how much I have appreciated it. Submitted by Lori Beach. Carolina Rapp, Family and Consumer Science at BHS. As a team leader, she is on top of any issues in order to assure success. Her support has been greatly appreciated. I am so glad to work with her. Submitted by Lori Beach. Jen Diamond and Ron Anderson. 5th grade at Lincoln Elementary School. 2 amazing teachers did a wonderful job at having a meeting for students and parents who were going into 5th grade. They had a presentation and nailed every aspect of what needs to happen for kids to succeed in the classroom. I am grateful my twins will experience this dynamic duo for 5th grade. That was submitted by Laura Davis. Andy Werhane was not able to join us tonight, but he was an instructional coach at BHS. Andy has helped me grow out of my comfort zone when it comes to technology. His patience has been appreciated, and the knowledge he has passed on will only continue to grow. And Andy is now serving at Washington Academy as an assistant principal. Rob Wesselhoff is also not able to be here with us this evening. He's special ed at BHS. Even through a very difficult situation this past school year, Rob was professional and continued to advocate for all of his students' best interests. His communication was clear and student-centered. He is truly a VIP. And another one for Rob Wesselhoff. Rob has faced many challenges last school year and continued to be positive, student-centered, and enthusiastic about teaching. He is a good friend, good mentor, and an amazing teacher. Holly Frey. Speech at Lincoln Elementary. Holly is always learning and advocating for students. She is reflective about her work and makes sure she understands all the aspects to a situation. She is a champion for students and for her colleagues. Submitted by Teresa Montalbano Owen. Emelita Riley. ESL at BHS. Emelita was a huge asset to my second semester health occupations classes last school year. I don't feel the class would have been as successful without all of her help. Thank you, Emelita. Submitted by Lori Duke. Shannon Wersinski. Assistant principal at BHS. Shannon loves her job. She is always looking to learn new things and faces challenging situations head on. She advocated for students and staff and is a peacemaker. She is professional at all times. I am fortunate to work with her. Submitted by Teresa Montalbano Owen. James Hotchkiss. He's science at Everest High School. I would like to make a shout out to Jamie because his lessons are very engaging. Our students have learned so much from him. Jamie can relate to all students. He is very patient and willing to go the extra mile to help any student. He also is here for students who just need to talk. Our district is very lucky to have him here at Everest High School. And Linda Weber. Help desk at North. Linda supports me in the tech department nearly every day. I would literally be lost without her support and knowledge. She is a wonderful resource and always happy to help and support me in any way she can. She is the hardest worker I have ever met. The grass certainly doesn't grow under her feet. Submitted by Amber Rather. Thank you and congratulations to all of you for your well-deserved recognition tonight.
He knows his place.
And at this time, we are very excited to have our students perform. Mr. Zimmerman, is there anything you want to say before they start?
Of course, yeah.
I guess.
All right. Hi there, everyone. My name is David Zimmerman. I'm the director of theater at Belvedere North High School. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming season, which you can see over on the bulletin board. But our first show is it's quite unique. It's a bit of an experiment and a challenge of sorts. It finds its roots in Chicago, being the longest running play in Chicago history. And to this day, the Neo Futurists perform 3 times a week, 50 weeks out of the year, and have been doing so since 1988. So we're excited to share this challenge of 30 plays, in only 60 minutes. During this show, we will invite the cast or the audience onto the stage itself. We'll start a timer, and when time's up, we'll be done, or not, which is great time management for babysitters, and just a really nice challenge for the students. But For today, we're gonna go ahead and show you, you gave us like 5-6 minutes, yes?
Yes.
We're gonna each go through 3 plays in
Okay,
like 5
all
or
right.
6 minutes. And so, the audience will actually get to decide what order these plays happen in. I have several cast members here with us today. I have Megan Anton, Layla Waters, Jaden Mossbrook, Mia Burt, I have B. Pollard, Gianna Ventry, and I have our stage manager and assistant stage manager as well. And so we're gonna go ahead, come on out. Normally we would have all 30 of these plays on a clothesline. Your job is, yes? Just like you practiced, right? Yes, all right. We'll have all 30 plays on a clothesline, and then you, tonight, the board members, will get to decide what plays we'll see and in what order. So do we want to see 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2, all right, gotcha. Nice. This is play number 2. This is play number 2, Over Your Head, in 3, 2, 1, go.
Zu den Heiligen gehört es zu Wittgenstein. Das Haus? Meine Frau ist das Haus. Look it up.
Some of these plays make sense and some of them don't. So let's go ahead and look at one of our other plays. Shout it out. You can say 1 or 3.
1.
1. All right. This is play number 1. Play number 1. Get 2 chairs. Mike, you take a chair. Nice. We love to use our resources. This is play number 1, entitled, title, and go.
Statement, statement, statement. Question? Agreement. Assured statement. Confident statement. Confident statement. Overly confident statement. Question? Defensive, elaborate excuse. Part agreement. Insecure statement. Distracted statement. Absurd statement. Clarification question. Panicked BS explanation. Quick meaningless comic non sequitur. Laughter. Fake laughter. Fake laughter. Unconscious compliment of physical characteristics. Used response. Continuation of meaningless comic non sequitur. Laughter. Release laughter. Release laughter. Superficial compliment. Self-assured agreement as denial. Confident statement. Exaggerated statement. Grossly exaggerated statement. Clarification question? Elaborate elucidation. Mental compliment with accidental double entendre. Confident laughter. Confident laughter. Confident suggested proposition. Violent denial. Aghast repetition as question. Disgusted violent denial. Defensive incriminating implication. Offended retort. Childish aggressive insult. Disbelieving rhetorical Childish aggressive insult. Childish aggressive insult. Defensive childish response. Childish aggressive insult. Defensive childish response. Attempted conclusive statement. Brilliant scathing remark with literary allusions and long-term devastating heterological implications. Pathetic self-revelation.
Thank her. All right. Now we have time for one more play, and there are so many options for you tonight. What should we see?
3.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you. This is play number 3, Zenith. In 3, 2, 1, go.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the play you've been waiting for. This is the play you hoped to see when you decided to attend our show tonight.
This play is the accumulation of every penny you paid to get in and every second of your life you spent getting here. This is the only play that has the capacity to change your life. After this play, you will never be the same. You'll be able to walk around knowing you're completely changed because of this play. This play will have you feeling great for the rest of the week. Food will always taste better after seeing this play. You'll feel great about your body after this play. The clothes you're wearing right now will always receive compliments after this play. After this play, everyone will love you. Even people who think you're a jerk. Even if you are a jerk. You will get what you can't have after this play.
You get what you can't have and still feel like you need it after this play.
Your consciousness will be altered by this play. You will have a self-centered superiority complex for you have seen this play. You will always, for the rest of your life, be able to make sly and witty allusions to this play, and everyone will laugh. None of them will understand.
Books will be written about this play, and the people who have seen this play, and you will be in those books because you are one of those people.
This play is great. This play is wonderful. This is the best play that has ever been written. Say it with me. This is the best play that has ever been written.
When you leave this room, you will tell us how amazing this play was, how this was your favorite play, how much you respect and admire us for having done this play.
This play will last you a lifetime. You will live longer because you've seen this play.
You will think about this play when you die.
You will never see this play again.
This play will never be performed again.
This play will never end.
This play is over.
This play is dead.
Long live this play!
And curtain. As I said, some of these plays make sense, a lot of them don't. But will we get through all 30 of them in 60 minutes? That's for you to decide. We perform Friday the 13th at 5 p.m. right before the varsity football game, so you can catch them both, a little Barbenheimer action. And then we perform the Saturday, October 14th at 2 and 7. All of you, all staff and students are free with their ID at the door. So thank you so much. I've left some flyers out on the table for people to take.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman, and all of you players.
I also wanted to let you know it is pajama day, so that explains their attire. But we thank you so much. We hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Oh, thank you.
Why not get come up?
Oh, thank
I was trying to figure out the hat.
Right.
All right, at this time, we would like to share any board member celebrations or positive highlights, things that people have heard or seen over the last month in our District 100 community.
I'll start. So we had our facilities long-range planning committee meeting at Caledonia School this last week, and we got to tour one of our new early childhood rooms, which was just awesome. You walked in and it felt like a room where you would want your child to be. It was very welcoming, and the new furniture and the stations were all perfectly sized and arranged for our little ones, so that was super exciting and fun. And then we also got to see an outdoor classroom that's being created at Caledonia with some collaboration between our building and grounds and our building principal and our staff at Caledonia. So that's kind of a work in progress, but it was neat to see that sort of forward thinking and innovation, and people in different parts of our district sort of encouraging that and putting their minds together to figure out how things can happen. So both those things were really, really cool. Any others?
I would chime in. So I got a couple of things to share, maybe a few things, to be honest with you, but a lot of good things. And first of all, we should celebrate Mr. Zimmerman and his students for the great play that that they did for us today, and will continue to do so here in the short future. But I was recently at a football game for Belvedere North opening game night, sitting in the stands with my wife and my small child, watching. Obviously, our daughter was going to perform there at Varsity Palms, but I could hear the visitors, and I believe they were there because there was a Thunder Youth cheer. There was some kind of cheer camp for the little girls there that evening. But the parents that were there in attendance, you could tell that they weren't from the area because of the compliments they gave to not only the entire entrance from the football team coming out, the flags, the band, the whole thing. You can even tell the one woman was just taken back by our band. The kids have capes. So, you know, band looks and sounded really good, looked very professional out there, again, with just a great entrance. They, you know, complimenting how the football team, the spirit, everybody, you know, came out with flags out there. So, you know, that was noticed, obviously, from parents from different schools. We should be proud of that. We should be really proud about our school district. I'm sure we have the same thing at Belvedere High School as well. Shout out to them as well. The second thing I want to share is something I heard directly from the Rockford Symphony Orchestra. And, you know, shout out to Jason Constable, Belvedere High School band director. Shout out to Mrs. Lauren Hart, Belvedere Central music director. So basically what I heard is that they've started a mariachi club for students, for kids, to get them engaged in music as an alternative to not just your regular standard music, but learning something different, something engaging that's going to help students. I thought it was really exciting. And I think there are some grant opportunities that I believe both of these teachers are going to be pursuing with the Belvedere High School Boosters as well. But I just thought it was exciting that it even got to the Rockford Symphony Orchestra for them to even share this kind of news about the programs there at those two high school and South Middle School. But yeah, it was South Middle School. So just wanted to share that. I mean, there's a lot of good things that we're hearing, not only here, but in the community, in the region, about things that are going on here in Belvedere. I mean, we should be really proud about our district, our students, our teachers, about what we have going on. So I had to just share that news.
Any others to share at this time?
I'd like to just say really quick that I think in the period when school starts for a month, a lot of things can and do go wrong with nobody's fault. I'd like to have a shout out to all the parents, students, teachers, administrators, and staff who showed a lot of patience and understanding. When they could have gotten mad, decided to exhibit patience and understanding instead.
I'd like to say I'm really pleased. We had our first parent pulse check with POSIP. That's what we use to gauge satisfaction in the district. It's really great and easy and quick. If you haven't done it, you can do it via phone or email. And we had an overall district satisfaction level in the 80% and higher range, which is really great, which is really within that national norm. So we'll continue to hope to keep that trend, as Matt said, as we start the school year and as we continue. So really pleased to see that in our schools and the satisfaction of our families in reference to their child's education. All right, we would like to welcome our student council representatives back to give us an update on what has been happening in our schools. And first up, we have Addison Walker from Belvedere High School. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I am Addison Walker from Belvedere High School. I'm a junior, and I am here this evening with your September school board update. First, we have Meehan Elementary School. At the start of the month, students participated in PBIS stations, where they reviewed school-wide expectations in common areas. Students have shown their expectations on a daily basis and have come in classrooms already up to 20 golden MVPs. On September 18th, Meehan celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month by inviting guest readers from the community to read their story to each classroom. Students have also featured in the morning announcements to highlight their Hispanic culture and influential people. Our next school is Washington Academy. Washington has had an amazing start to the school year. Our students are doing a wonderful job creating classroom PBIS matrices that align with our school PBIS matrix. The PBIS kickoff assemblies were a fun way to review school-wide expectations and give a few prizes 2 weeks ago. We had an honor of hosting a U.S. Idler demonstration with our Governor Pritzker in the attendance. Go Wildcats! South Middle School, no report provided. Belvedere High School. BHS is off to a good start to the 23-24 school year. At our August kickoff assembly, students learned about our school goal of safer hallways, restrooms, cafeterias, and so far they have responded positively. We have a major decrease in discipline referrals through the first 15 days of school from 1 year ago, which helps everyone spend more time thinking about exciting learning experiences in the classroom. Athletic participation in the fall season has been strong again, and we are excited to host the fall musical in early November. We celebrated the arts in Arts Education Week, September 11th to the 15th, and the Performing Arts Booster will host a mattress sale on September 24th in the auxiliary gym. Homecoming Week is September 25th and 30th through the 30th, and it includes a car show, paint the parking lot, powder puff, pep rally, the annual parade, dance, daily dress-up days, and an invitation for alumni choir students to sing at the halftime show. Go Bucks! Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next up, we have Rhea Min from Belvedere North High School.
Good evening, everyone. It's exciting to be back. And before I start, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys and any staff and admin in the audience. It has been a really smooth school year so far, and I'm super excited for what this year has to offer. So, from Caledonia Elementary, the school year has started off well at Caledonia. We have begun construction over at our outdoor classroom and ordered furniture, thanks to the foundation and our PTO for the funding. We had our first assembly of the school year focused on good behavior. All students finish up their initial MAP testing, and we have our annual fun run at the end of the month. Lincoln Elementary, nothing provided, and then Perry Elementary. Here are some highlights from the start of the school year so far. Students completed PBIS stations, meaning they visited areas of the school like the cafeteria, playground, and etc. to discuss expectations and attended their first kickoff assembly with good behavior. Students worked hard to complete their first fall MAP assessment, and we tested 100% of our students. Students did a wonderful job during their bus evacuation drill with great listening skills. We look forward to classes visiting our school store for the first time this year on September 29th. Seth Whitman Elementary. It was a very busy start to the school year at Seth Whitman. Some of the highlights include kicking off the first 20 days of school. This is when teachers spend extra time creating classroom communities and teaching students about routines and expectations. We also hosted a kindness laser show to kick off our upcoming Kindness Week. Admins spent time in classrooms reading aloud a book called When Things Are Going Right, Go Left. This book also fitted with the first 20 days of school and encouraged a growth mindset. From Belvedere Central, CMS kicked off their year with a welcome back dance and an open gym and had almost 300 students participate. Our PBIS team was able to earn $2,665 that will help to provide items for our students to purchase through our online Trek store. From Belvedere North High School, this month at North, we've had kickoff assemblies where we reintroduced the Northway pillars of respect, resilience, and engagement. Overall, students have done a great job of meeting those expectations. We recognized Suicide Prevention Week by having the comfort dogs at lunch, tie-dyeing in the courtyard, and passed out mental health stickers and showed a video of the resources at North as we try to break the stigma surrounding mental health. We have had a great start to our fall sports where currently boys and girls golf and girls volleyball are in the first place in the NIC-10 conference. And finally, we are excited for homecoming this week. I hope that you guys can come to our crosstown football game this Friday. So, yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, ladies, so much. You're welcome to, of course, leave, but you're also welcome to stay at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, members of the public and employees of District 100 may make public comments. As a reminder, any person appearing before the board is expected to address the board only at the appropriate time, as indicated on the agenda, and follow the directives of the board president to maintain order and decorum. Identify oneself, limit comments to 3 minutes, conduct oneself with respect and civility towards others, and otherwise abide by board policy 8:30, visitors to and conduct on school property. At this time, we have one visitor, Misty Coriel, if you would like to approach the podium at this time. Janine, can you double check if that's on? It's more for like our folks on video to make sure they hear you. We'll just Okay, I'll have Janine take a glance right quick, just to make sure, if you don't mind. Was it on?
Thank you. So I had the opportunity to attend the policy committee meeting on Thursday, which it sounds like it's going to be. So this is what I'm speaking about tonight. I'm going to share a brief story about how process improvement works where I work. So I'm project manager by education and trade. One of my many talents, being a subject matter expert, is identifying in the implementation process when something isn't working. I'm the one fielding many of those phone calls. So throughout the process of receiving that feedback, right, my job is to then seek out answers, poll, dig, and figure out, okay, why isn't it working the way that we anticipated things were going to go? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So I receive feedback from those teams, right, and I put together a plan of change that is agreed upon by all of the stakeholders, right, regarding that. That is how it should work, and that is how it's supposed to work according to Dr. Shug from the policy meeting during on Thursday, September 14th. So for those that were not here at the time, or those children, or those whose children were not impacted negatively by the previous grading and promotion system, let's take a moment to review why that policy was changed in the first place. Our children were having trouble understanding their grades and what they needed to do in order to fix them. They had to wait until grades came out at the end of the semester to find out if they had an A, B, C, D, F, but then it was too late in most cases for any type of remediation. People did take their concerns directly to the superintendent, and in some occasions, the comments from those meetings were not welcomed. The community did show up at curriculum committee meetings asking questions about the system. These are some of the following things that were said during one of the meetings that I personally went to. We were told it was a 10-year plan. We were told to think of it like a J-curve. It gets worse before it gets better. We were at the bottom of the J-curve with no plans for remediation. The kids were left with gaps in their education as a result. District scores were in a steep decline, and the majority of secondary school students were unhappy with the system. Students were not turning in work on time or at all in some cases. Parents would receive 5, 6, 7 pieces of paper with each progress report explaining how the grading system worked. There was no common understanding between the teachers of what constituted a 1, 2, 3, or 4. In some cases, a 4 was unattainable. Why have it? No correlation in second, need I go on, right? There was no correlation from that to the GPAs that the students needed to get scholarships. My daughter was specifically impacted significantly by that. The community showed up to board meetings expressing their concerns. Those concerns were continually ignored. We were left to the decisions of the superintendent and the experts. And the board just continued to vote yes and allow things to continue. Negative feedback or concerns from some of the stakeholders in the group, teachers, administrators that didn't agree with the program, were told to get on board or else. So there was no feedback being sought after from people who were in the trenches. The community took their efforts to changing the system by voting in new board members and subsequently implementing an updated grading and promotion policy that provided transparency and oversight to the process of changing the grading and promotion system. Dr. Carson did an incredible job following the desire of the community and feedback from all of the stakeholders, putting together a plan. It was not a hodgepodge of ideas brought to the board to pick and choose from. The board simply closed the door in one direction and forced us to go in the direction that the community was asking us to go. All of the voices said that they wanted to go this direction. Now I am specifically speaking here about secondary. I can keep going?
If you want to wrap up your thought.
I'm going to wrap
You're
up.
good.
I
You're good.
only have a couple
You're
minutes.
good.
So Dr. Carson did a great job of bringing in a new system that was voted on by the board. So let's ask the question. Why do we change policy? Policy change comes from ISBE. The change is unclear in its true intent and needs clarification, or the policy is not working as written. So the community agreed that the policy was not working as written, so we changed it. So the argument that a new school board could be voted in and vote down the current grading system is absurd, because that same argument can be made if the superintendent changes or the experts in the district change, right? So, I mean, let's remember, there are 3 sitting board members right now that were part of the board that allowed things to run off the rails without question, without questioning it, without oversight, without accountability, and it continued down that path until we made the change. So why do we have to be consistent with other districts, as was the argument in the policy committee meeting? Why do we do that? Not all of our policies are consistent with what everybody else does. And why does that matter if it is? How does it benefit the students to make this change? I mean, let's face it, we all knew when that was put on the agenda for that meeting, that it was gonna be a hot button. So,
Thank you, Misty. Any other visitors at this time are asked to approach the podium? Okay, now we'll have our Board of Education committee reports. Business Services Committee met on September 5th. Mr. Booker, do you have anything you'd like to highlight or add for Business Services Committee report?
Well, it's pretty much consent agenda.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Booker? Educational Services Committee meeting met on September 6th. Ms. Mayville, do you have anything you'd like to add or highlight about Educational Services Committee report?
I do not.
Any questions for Ms. Mayville? Facilities and Long Range Planning Committee met on September 13th. Ms. Mayville, do you have anything you'd like to add or highlight about Facilities and Long Range Planning Committee? Anybody have any questions for Ms. Mayville in relation to that committee?
I do have a question on the report there. It was mentioned that Mr. Winters shared that he would be going out for an invitation to bid for snow removal. So just kind of wanted to get a little bit more detail into, are we talking about the entire district, a few buildings? What exactly are we talking about in terms of going out for bid for the snow removal?
It's for the entire district, but not every building. Typically, the bigger buildings north. The only buildings that are not put out would be Central, Cal, I believe. What happened was that the current provider wanted a change in the contract, and so we decided to release the ITE.
Do ask you a question? Go ahead. Do we pay a flat fee or do we pay on a per time?
Both. Typically, a flat fee for some of the equipment, couple pieces, and hourly for how long it takes for them to remove.
Other questions for Mr. Booker or Mr. Winters?
So we're just replacing a provider that's no longer providing the service? Is that how I understand it?
Possibly. We did speak to the current provider, as well as reaching out to the previous one, and to let them know that the IT is up.
Okay, thank you.
Policy Committee meeting was on September 14th. Mr. Zickert, do you have anything you'd like to add or highlight from our notes or the meeting?
No, I think if you read the notes, you'll be pretty well informed. My only suggestion would be read the policies that are up and be informed.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Zickert?
Nothing's coming out of the committee for first reading, correct, tonight? It's still being worked on. There were, okay.
Yeah, because of our close timeline, none of it. We plan to bring things back in October.
For first reading.
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah.
Or not, yeah. Next on the agenda are our consent agenda items. Are there any items on the consent agenda any members of the board would like to take out for separate consideration?
Personnel report.
Okay.
Boiler, RFP proposal.
Okay, any others? So number 3, personnel report. Number 9, boiler. Anything else? Okay. At this time, I would like to acknowledge the following donation. We had 60 headphones for Belvedere South Middle School, 100 headphones for Lincoln Elementary School, 100 headphones for Meehan Elementary School, and 100 headphones for Washington Academy from the First United Methodist Church, 800 granola bars for Washington Academy from General Mills, and $1,000 from the Belvedere Cooperative Girls Swim Team from the Belvedere Cosmopolitan Charities Incorporated. If we could give a round of applause for those donations. If we could make a motion to look at all the items, pulling separately number 3 and number 9. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items excluding number 3 and number 9?
So moved.
Second.
Member Mayville made a motion and Member Herrera seconded the motion to approve the consent agenda items not pulled, numbers 3 and number 9, as presented. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed 6-0. Do I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 3, the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Member Herrera made a motion and Member Mayville seconded the motion to approve consent agenda items number 3 as presented. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Abstain.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed 5 and 1 abstained. Do I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 9 as presented, boiler RFP recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Member Mayville made a motion and Member Herrera seconded the motion to approve consent agenda item number 9 as presented. Any discussion?
Yeah, so we're approving the boilers now and the install will follow. The install is roughly 3 times the amount of the products themselves at over 1.3 million. Is there any reason to believe, and I appreciate Dr. Shug and Mr. Winters for providing the insurance information. I think it's necessary for all of us as board members to be really concerned about those limits and things like that. And so I would maybe ask that that be shared across the board. But my question is there any sense that delays or timelines or anything could put us past our ability to use ESSER funds for completion of the project? I know we only have a certain amount of time we can, spend that money. Do we have any reason to believe that?
I am not
I know we
aware
had
of,
supply
we
chain issues
still
before.
have through September of next school
Right.
year, so September of 2024. Joanne or Mr. Winters, Ms. Armstrong?
Are you speaking towards the boiler?
The installation.
Well, boilers, water softeners, I know there's a couple things, but the water softeners we're not putting on tonight, but,
No concerns as far as any type of supplies. Boilers, believe it or not, 6 weeks. Probably the only other issue, I shouldn't say issue, but the major component would be pumps. Some of the pumps that are currently installed are not right-sized, but they don't move enough water. But that is well within our timeframe. We are really ahead of the curve in getting this prepped and ready for next summer. When we initially talked, we said if we can get this all by February, we could be doing well. So I'm very confident. We have Andrew Macklin here from Larson Darby as well. Any other projects, Andrew, that you had any type of long lifetime?
So as Sean has mentioned, you guys are ahead of the curve in ordering the boilers and getting those pre-purchased. And getting this out to bid as a construction project.
I didn't read all 96 pages, I'm gonna be honest, it was 96 pages. Thank you for whoever put it together. Where are we keeping the boilers when we get them? Where are they being, because obviously they're not gonna be installed right away.
No, we'll take them over to my building, Shipping and Receiving, and we'll store them in our receiving area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed 6-0. Next, we'll have our roll call action items. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the resignation?
Yes,
I'm supposed to read it?
that is correct. That is
Okay.
the advice that we received.
Okay, that's what I wondered. Okay, I apologize. Next, we have our roll call action items. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the resignation of James Bragg as presented?
So
Second.
Member Mayville made a motion and Member Booker seconded the motion to approve the resignation as presented. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mrs. Brenner.
Aye. That's okay. Motion passed, 6-0. Do I have a motion to approve the 2023-24 administrative contract for 11-month administrator at Belvedere North High School, John Rosado?
So moved.
Second.
Member Herrera made a motion and Member Mayville seconded the motion to approve the 2023-24 administrative contract for the 11-month administrator, John Rosado, as presented. Any discussion?
My concerns have absolutely nothing to do with the individual. I'm just going to say again, I repeatedly have concerns about the fact that we hire and start individuals before it comes before the board. I don't care if, if it's changed that the board doesn't have to approve these things anymore, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. Secondarily, the policy proposition to potentially change the policy that would afford that as an option is very concerning to me, because we're going to potentially, well, the language of the markup that I saw indicated that we would tell people that you're being hired contingently, subject to the board's approval, and if you're not approved by the board, then you would be immediately terminated. And I think that's asking a lot of anybody. I know when we had conversation earlier this year about the early childhood program, there was a great deal of angst surrounding a delay of even 1 month. That the idea that we would push that back could potentially intersect with people's willingness to apply, and that they would not see that as a legitimate job because the potential existed that that wouldn't be approved per se. And so now we're saying to folks, we'll hire you, we'll give you a start date, you'll start in a building, but if for any reason the board were to not approve you, you'd be immediately terminated and paid for whatever time. We've now put people, have given notice, have left other jobs, and have come here. The likelihood of them not being approved, I think, is obviously low. I get that it's low, but it isn't without the possibility of occurrence. So in this particular case, it's a twofold concern. The example here is this individual was hired and started. I don't know this individual, I know nothing about it. Then we have the same building employment situation, which is, again, we're deviating from that, and that's okay. We're going to take a different course that way. But when I don't want to vote no, right? I don't want to vote no for any new employee, but I will be abstaining tonight because I can't in good conscience say that I approve the practice that has existed. So for me, that's what I'll be doing.
Part of the discussion that we talked about at policy committee meeting in relation to the policy that Lisa's bringing forward is currently, as the board structure sits, we just have meetings 1 time a month. There are a lot of other local districts that have meetings more than 1 time a month to try to combat that issue that she brought up. So, I mean, that would be a policy level decision to first start talking about if that's something else we want to look at. We also talked about, although it could be risk, there also could be more risk if we don't fill positions such as not meeting IEP minutes that we're legally bound to, having other discipline issues that come up, and having safety concerns because we don't have staff in front of kids. So also some of the committee members that are teachers talked about hard to fill positions, not meeting legal required minutes with SPED EL populations as well. So those were some of the other sides of
and I think
the coin.
they're just, again, I'm one voice, so I'm not saying that this is but we do have, as you say, 2 mechanisms. We can call a special meeting if we need to approve a hard to place position. I do think it is something we have to take a close look at if it's voted through at whatever time to change the policy to say that individuals will be hired subject to board approval, they will start, and if they're not approved by the board, they'll be immediately dismissed. I wonder how we will manage that from a administrative, and again, that's a how question, so, I know you guys will have to work that through. But I think we also have to think about, we have to be sure we have adequately disclosed that to people, and that they come in eyes wide open. If for any reason that position is not, supported at the board meeting, and, again, the likelihood I get is very, very low. But, what happens if and when and ever. So keeping it specifically there to draw that analogy related to this particular position, that policy doesn't exist now, but the practice is just, a concern for me. So I would just abstain. Because I don't want to vote no for,
And this is the practice that we've engaged in forever, as far as I know, and that other school districts do as well.
Unless they have multiple meetings a month to combat that based on size, et cetera.
No, I've been here on the board 10 years, and we have never, the board has never pulled a person out and said, we're not going to hire that person. If we did, I assume it would be a circumstance where something popped in a background check between hiring and board approval, in which case the person shouldn't be employed anyway. I'm sure anyone who applies to a governmental body or other public institution understands that their employment is subject to the, rubber stamp of the board at the next scheduled meeting. So I don't, people wanted to special board meetings every time we hire someone, that certainly would be something. I mean, our personnel report this month has quite a few people on it, and I assume they're all hired on different dates. So you're talking about a lot of special board meetings in order to accomplish something that has never been a problem. So it's the way we've always done it. It's worked fine. I think it'll continue to work.
I would just share that we did consult with the attorney on all of this as well, because we know that this has been an ongoing practice here, but also an ongoing concern with the board, which is why we were looking to create some clarity potentially in policy, which is not forthcoming this month, but we do anticipate coming forth next month. And he did also share that this is a very common practice among districts, and that the language that we will be voting on in the policy revision is all language that he specifically drafted for the district.
And I wanted to point out that the early childhood thing is sort of apples and oranges. That was, is this program going to exist, as opposed to, hey, we've got a 4th grade class that needs a teacher here. So it was not exactly the same thing, and there was no reason to delay that vote. So.
Well, the only thing I would say about that, and I don't want to get too far afield here, is, that's just like what I'm saying tonight is my opinion. That's your opinion. And, again, we can disagree on an opinion basis, and we can say that you see it as apples and oranges, and I see it as, apples and apples. What I think is important is that we don't take opportunity to minimize the opinions of other board members, right? This is the purpose of board meetings, and to have discussion, and to, again, I'm not trying to convince anybody else. I've been consistent all along that my concern is the way in which we do it. Whether or not that continues or doesn't continue will remain to be seen, but I think it's important that we just respect one another's opinions as shared, or questions, or concerns. And, I'm not lobbying here and saying others should have the same concern, but I also, I think it's an unfair mischaracterization to state as anything other than opinion that, it really isn't a good example. So I think, going forward, it would be nice if that could.
Could you clarify what was problematic, what I said?
I'm sorry?
Could you clarify? I didn't understand what was problematic. My opinion.
Thank you for characterizing it as your opinion. Now I have no problem with it. You stated it more
Everything
as
I say is my opinion. I mean, do we all have to, would you like me to start out with my opinion
Sure, that would be
from
great.
now on?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you for your opinion.
In my opinion, I've
This is
had a
something.
problem with this as well, just from coming from a business background. That's not the way my world works. I've always thought it's a bad procedure and a bad way to do things. I voted no for people before that. I didn't want to vote no for it because I've stated that to you, that I do not want to vote for people who are hired before we get to see it. It basically, why do we have it that the board is supposed to approve administrative people if we don't even get to see them before they're already hired? Kind of defeats the purpose in my eyes. So I don't want to vote no, either, but I think it's a bad practice.
I mean, I know the person, and I think he's a good choice, so it's not that at all. I don't like the practice. I've said it before, I said it at the policy committee meeting. We have teachers, and I think this gets to be, you kind of look at it both sides, is that I hope it's a rare exception instead of becoming the norm, but we also have a lot of people on the personnel report are for sports in the winter and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of stuff was clubs, so there wasn't a ton that we would have had a special board meeting for. I think also, too, we have a lot of teachers, and we had some this year at our district, that did not want to resign until the board approved them at their other job. So it works. We have a lot of issues that I know Sarah will speak, knows that true from her dealing with stuff like that too, is that it does put you in a quandary sometimes, is that what we pay the price for, what we benefit for on one end, we may pay the price for on others. So I think we have to be real careful about how we navigate through that, because it's not what we do, we may get mad at somebody else for doing the same thing. And there are creative ways. I mean, this isn't a hill I'm ever going to die on, but I mean, we could give them a temporary contract, we could hire them as a sub, we could do a lot of things. We don't have to keep them out of the buildings.
That's what we said at policy.
I mean, we could do all that stuff, sometimes it's just semantics. So, that's it.
We pointed out the issue with benefits.
Yeah,
We did that at
yeah.
policy.
We did talk about that being harder to get people in as a sub position.
In my opinion,
Sorry, I forgot to say that. Sorry, Sarah.
I'm,
My fault.
in my
Careful, you'll
opinion,
get scolded.
My fault.
anyways, as a
Carla,
school,
don't do that. Don't do that.
as a school
It's
administrator.
beneath us
You
as a board.
started it,
It's
Lisa.
beneath us as a
All right.
board.
You
We
I'm
don't
gonna-
have to do that.
Can I say thank you? I would just say, like Matt said, to add to that from the administrative practitioner lens, that is obviously different than Tom's lens, which both totally valid, just different experiences. It puts the building level people in a hard place when people can't start because it impacts their overall functionality, safety, security, the services that we want to provide, such as bathrooming a child if required, such as supervising kids on the playground. You know, that is the other side. I don't think we need to be rubber stamping people, but that's why it's a policy discussion. But I'd just like to bring us back to, this is for John here. And I would like us to, if we can move forward with a motion for approving John and then further discussion at policy in relation to that.
So this is coming up at next policy.
It was discussed.
It was at
last
the
policy.
last policy, yes, and it will come to the full board for discussion in October, outside of John. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera,
Aye.
Ms. Maybell,
Aye.
Mr. Booker,
Aye.
Mr. Zickert,
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb,
Abstain.
and Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed, 5 and 1 abstained.
I would just share that Mr. Rosato was unable to be here this evening, but did want to share with the board that he is very excited to join the district and has enjoyed the opportunity to make the transition here to Belvedere North. And he joins us with considerable experience, and I think he'll be a real asset to the team at North.
Do I have a motion regarding the social media litigation?
So moved.
Second.
Member Herrera made a motion and Member Booker seconded the motion to participate in the mass action litigation case against giant social media companies for the negative impacts they are having on students and school districts throughout Illinois as presented. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Herrera,
Aye.
Mr. Booker,
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb,
Aye.
Mr. Zickert,
Aye.
Ms. Maybell,
Aye.
Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed 6-0. Do I have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 school district scorecard?
So, second.
Member Mayville made a motion and Member Herrera seconded the motion to approve the 2023-24 school district scorecard as presented. Discussion?
Can I just share a couple of things about the scorecard that I think might be helpful for you to know? I know we shared them out at Ed Services, but this is a really important document that we're going to be referencing throughout the coming year. If board members, if you would click into the second document that starts 23-24 on your screen. I want to share with you a couple important pieces to this that I think will help in the overall implementation of the strategic plan. So if you click into the first slide there, what you're going to see is our strategic plan goals as they exist in our strategic plan, directly from our strategic planning committee. And you see also that we've printed up some documents to go alongside those for families and for staff for easy access and understanding of what that means. On the second slide, it's very important to note that there have been no changes made from the approved plan. However, after working to implement and operationalize the plan over the summer, we found that it would be helpful to do some shifting and some clarification of some of the strategies. So again, none of the content has changed, but there's been some more specific pieces developed in terms of the strategies. So if you look at goal 1, where you have academic achievement and growth, that was going to be a difficult goal to execute without breaking it down into really the sum of its parts. So we pulled out here math academic growth, ELA academic growth, graduation rates, closing achievement gaps, and we also have expanding learning opportunities for pre-K. So expanding learning opportunities for pre-K was always in there. These other strategies were in there as well. However, they were much more broadly stated, and this will help to give us a little bit more focus and again help us to create really specific plans around how we can execute on that. Any questions on that? Okay, if you look at goal area number 2, here we shifted extended learning opportunities, was previously strategy 3 to goal 2 for tracking the environment. We felt like it fell better under that goal 2 framework, made more sense in terms of, again, actually being able to operationalize it. You can also note that we lettered the strategies, so it's 1A, 1B, again, just making it a little bit easier to talk about and a little bit easier to track. In goal 3, we had 2 strategies under this, one about two-way family communication and one about enrollment. We felt those were really closely connected and we could use some of the same tools to address both of those. So we are combining those 2 strategies into one strategy, strategy A. Again, the language is all in there, but it's just in one strategy now. We did not make any changes under goal 4. And under goal 5, we originally had 4 strategies. 3 of them were around long-range planning for facilities, technology, and security. So we put all of those operational plans together in one spot, again, to really help the team work together to address all of those issues and maintained that financial piece. No content changed, just working to make this a little bit more operational, and I think you'll see that when I briefly talk through the district scorecard as well. Any questions about any of that?
What is the intent for once this is voted on by the board? What's the intent for our other like stakeholder follow-up and communication, families, et cetera?
Fantastic question. So once we have the district scorecard approved, we will then really be able to begin communicating around what these next steps are, building out some of our action planning teams, and really begin the work of the strategic plan. But we wanted to first make sure the board was comfortable with what we were doing and how we were shifting some of those pieces, and also what the scorecard looks like. So we'll be doing a lot of rollout of the plan, the language, the next steps, and getting stakeholders involved.
I don't have any problem with the basic framework of the plan.
Yep.
I apologize. What I hope we see is now we see a framework compared to the strategic plan, which is where you have to start. I get that part. I think when we had the last strategic plan, for somebody who was really critical of it in the past, I was fine with that framework too.
Yeah.
I didn't mind that framework. I didn't think that wasn't the problem. The problem was the components in it when we do the action planning and stuff like that, and the fact of how we monitor and what we monitor as we go along, and what conclusions we draw based on that information we have. So even though I think the plan is good, it really, in my world, substantively doesn't mean anything until we get to those other parts. And then I think that's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. And then we
I
can,
couldn't agree more, Matt. I think you are exactly right, and I think, I was just talking to Dr. Carson today, I'm just really anxious to get started and start really making the meaning out of this. So excited to be here tonight talking about this so we can start to really take those next steps. Because I think you're absolutely right, Matt. We want to start moving forward and seeing the impact it's going to have on our data. So if then you click into the actual scorecard, you see there the 5 goals, and there's a goal lead for each one of those, and you see the strategies that fall under there, okay? And there's a strategy lead for each one of those strategies, okay? So we have identified people who are going to be accountable for each one of these goals and each one of these strategies. And then we will be reporting out at a regular cadence here to the Ed Services team and to the board as a whole on our progress towards our KPIs. So below that, you see the performance dashboard. As we create these strategy scorecards, so each strategy is going to have a scorecard, and we get data that's going into those scorecards, it's going to feed up, right here, this is fictional data, what you're seeing here, right here, but it's going to feed up into the scorecard, and you'll be able to see how we're doing on each one of those goals, and then drill down further into the why. Below that, you see a sample heat map, which is going to help us then see what areas are green, where are we doing a good job, what areas are red, where do we need to pay some more attention, and what areas are warm, where are we orange, we're making progress but maybe not the same kind of progress we want to be making. So all of this data is going to be updated throughout the course of the year as those strategies rotate through. We'll be able to see the milestones, we'll be able to have an idea of what the whole district looks like, as well as what our individual schools look like and our individual strategies look like.
I'm sorry, what
No,
I'd like
go
to
right ahead,
No,
please.
when we look at this, and I don't think that's a bad idea either, is that when we look at it, though, what I'd like to have along with that, I've spoke about this before, is that on the things we do well in the green,
Yep.
maybe an analysis of why we did well.
Yep, I
And the
think
ones
that's
that we
great.
didn't have we have a red on, just don't say we have red.
Yeah.
An analysis of why we're at red and what we're gonna do substantively different to make it a yellow, and then hopefully eventually a green.
Yep.
I think the goal has to be yellow first and then green, because
It's hard to go from red to green.
It was
but-
green right
but-
away, God bless you. Maybe that's a lot harder.
Well, and I think that's going to be really important because we're going to need to have some really frank conversations because we're not going to be green in every area. There's going to be areas where we're struggling. There's going to be areas where we're going to need to repurpose and rethink the strategies that we're doing, and we need to be prepared for that. That's our job as administrators. That's your job as the board, to take a look at that, to keep track of that, and to say, okay, how can we support? What can we do? How can we make sure that we are addressing these issues? And if we don't have a way to track it and we don't have a way to be accountable for it, it's really hard to make the changes that maybe need to be happening. So we're excited to do that, and I think that's, Matt, you've absolutely nailed it. We need to figure out what we're doing right and why, and what we need to be working on.
Are those the only KPIs that they're going to report out on, or is that just an example?
These are the KPIs at the district level, but each strategy also has KPIs that are going to feed up into all of those goal areas. So these are some of the broad brushstrokes that we're going to be looking at, that overall math proficiency. We're targeting EL and special ed specifically and looking at the proficiency in those areas, trying to close those gaps. Then you see ELA the same, graduation rate.
And we picked, I'm sorry, and we picked
We
those?
chose those, and we can add, change, move some of those around.
The only reason I ask is just some of our previous conversation in relation to some of the equity work, like typically, like some of our other performance achievement gaps, whether it's racial in nature, whether it's gender, et cetera, like those might be ones that we get for state reporting anyways. And then there's like a lot of kiddos that might not fall into the EL lens, but still are some of those achievement gaps identified. So, I mean, that was my only thought in relation to that. But-
Well, I think that's an excellent thought and super accurate. And under this, again, there is a specific scorecard for special education, a specific scorecard for EL. So again, all of that is going to feed up as well. And that does not, and should not prohibit us from looking at our other achievement gaps and where we need to shore some items up.
I think too, what would be helpful, and maybe some of you could, if you ever looked at them, you could chime in too, is that when we look at some of the data and some of the results of this stuff, it would be nice to see a more of a compressed assessment of the data, maybe so to speak. Because like, I'll just give you an example. The POSSUP surveys, if you ever, I mean, you guys have all looked at it, most of you have at least.
Yes, we have.
Looked at those POSSUP surveys and stuff, those are pages and pages and pages. And a lot of stuff to thumb through and really maybe not get a sense of what the overall message was from the actual data in there, because there's, it kind of, I don't want to say it scatters, but I mean, there's a lot of topics in there.
Yep.
That maybe just some generalizations over the specifics may be more helpful than having to look at 50 pages of each POSSUP survey.
Yeah,
so to
because
speak.
every time they at least give us the sentiment rate, like the happiness gauge, like a 2.93, right? And that'd be pretty, like, to your point, right, basic to say, like, yep, this is where we're sitting.
I think making that data accessible is going to be really important. So there's going to be a lot of data, right? We are data rich, but information poor, right? Is sort of where we can wind up. We need to really identify those key data points, make them accessible for everyone to understand and us to take action on. I think that's very appropriate and accurate.
I mean, I think people look at a page of analysis of a POSSUP survey more readily than to look at 55 pages.
Oh my
of it
gosh, yes.
And thumb through it.
Correct.
Yes.
That's my only
Yep.
suggestion.
I would agree.
And a lot of it can't be shared anyways because of confidentiality, like parents put their name in, but it's
Right.
intended for admin use.
Correct. Any other thoughts on the dashboard? Right. I'm really excited to be able to share this and get moving on this work. I think our administrative team will be as well. So thank you for giving me that little bit of time to talk through that. I think it was really important for everybody to understand it.
Any further discussion from board members? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed 6-0. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent goals for 2023-24?
So moved.
Second.
Member Mayville made a motion, and Member Herrera seconded the motion to approve the superintendent goals for 2023-24 as presented. Any discussion?
I mean, I'm going to vote for them, but I just hope in the future that we can maybe not, maybe pick out goals and maybe have not as many, but have ones that were really, I'd rather have a few that we concentrate on and really can look at and get your hands around, so to speak, than have a lot of them that are maybe not, are varying in effectiveness, not effectiveness, varying in how much we would value them one way or the other. But that's my only comment.
That's fair.
Other discussion or feedback?
I'll just say, and I mentioned this earlier, the goals on graduation rate, and I'm going to vote for it as well. I hope in the future we can find a better way to phrase it so it's connected to the learning of the students along the way.
Further discussion? I'm pleased with how we've structured it for twofold reasons. One, to connect it back to the work of this, and how does it connect to this instead of something separate? And then additionally, just like we have other administrators do, that it connects to our state vetted standards through the state and attorneys likewise for how we're gauging performance. So that's why I'm excited to vote yes for the policy and approval of the contract goals. Other discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mrs. Brunner.
Aye. Motion passed 6-0. The following items have been added for discussion or will be coming up for further review and/or possible action in the future.
Background information has been provided, and the board may ask questions and/or request clarification at this time. And I think we have a guest, right, Dr. Shaw?
We do. So I'm going to start by just referencing to the first document that's in there, which is a summary of behavior and safety plan efforts. I won't walk you through all that, but I know there's been a lot of conversation by the board wanting to make sure that our challenging behaviors are addressed across the district. We know we had some challenges, and also that our safety efforts are in place. This provides you an overview of the work that we're doing and also how it's aligned to the strategic plan. I'd be happy to speak to any part of that if you have any questions or want to incorporate that into part of the discussion. You can see, I think, that we've done a lot of work around really trying to be focused on being successful in this area and combining our efforts between doing what we know is best practice in terms of building relationships with students, making sure that they have a sense of belonging in their schools, as well as evaluating our disciplinary procedures and practices for consistency and efficiency there as well. So excited about that. We also have taken a lot of steps in terms of our safety plan, from completing a full staff training on safety this August. Mr. Lascola and Mr. Sockwell are going to all of the sites to do follow-up on that. We have purchased metal detectors that we are utilizing in our secondaries, which are very effective at detecting vapes, and we have found that to be a very effective deterrent for some of our students. We've also purchased Raptor software to assist us with reunification efforts and have added security monitors at Central and at South to help in that process. And we are in the process of our overall facility needs assessment and master plan process, which we think is going to help us prioritize what's next in those physical needs. Ms. Getty, coming into her new position at Central Middle School, knew and was aware of some of the concerns around behaviors at Central High School and was following the data for that very closely, and immediately has been working over the summer and even since the end of last year in terms of planning on how we could have a really good solid start at Central and make sure some of those things were addressed. So Ms. Getty prepared a presentation for you. I don't know that you need to walk through all of it, but if you wanted to share some of the key points with the board, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think so. It's 21 pages. Right now, but I think just so you all know, this is something that I started doing as soon as I was into the second and third rounds of interviews. So I knew it was important for staff and students and family to look at this specific data. So that's what we started to dig into. Again, I probably don't need to go into detail about how people felt being at Central last year, how our students felt being at Central last year. We have some of our staff data with students being a hot topic. So that was something that I think I felt very passionate about. My background is in counseling. So I think just the way that we were handling discipline for many years and for many reasons just wasn't working. So yes, I put some information in there about staff feedback and how they were feeling. I think just the way that it was going on for many, many years wasn't working and wasn't resonating with our kids. So I think a lot of the work that we did over the summer was specific to restorative practices and how we can really focus on the whole child instead of just addressing the behavior. So in addition to the work that we did over the summer, we are putting a lot of emphasis into our MTSS team because that was a team that was lacking. And I think just kind of building off of that, really giving some ownership in our staff that are the experts in those areas and following the trusted and inspired leadership that we've done this summer and saying, you know what, I may not be an expert in this area, but you are. So let's branch off and sort of tackle everything as a group, but also hone in on the expertise of the people that we have sitting at the table. So I really feel proud of the work that we've already started to do. I didn't include the updated PASA data, but I can share that. I was just pulling it up on my phone, and our feedback from parents, we had 81% of our parents answered yes, 17% mostly, and only 1% of our parents did not feel content with Central to start the a lot of our feedback was, I hope things turn around. I feel really confident things seem to be going well for most students, so we feel good about it. And I'm also really proud that only 2% of our staff this year felt like they weren't super happy. And I think those specific things that maybe they mentioned in the comments were specific to things that had happened in the past, and they're just a little nervous and hesitant for what may or may not come this year. So I think our staff is resilient and showing up and being ready to tackle all these problems this year, and I feel like we're off to a really good start. Concerns?
Yeah, how's the, I mean, you don't have to get specific, but how's the referral rate been so far?
You know, I think that our staff is still so used to writing referrals, but I think the way that we are handling the referrals is different. So they're lower, and I can pull that up, obviously. They were not so great. We are not anywhere near 92 referrals for the month of September right now. But the way that we're responding to them, I would say 50% or more have resulted in like a restorative conversation where a situation happens, student is maybe sent out of class, and then by the end of the day, there's a restorative conversation with the staff member, the student, and maybe an administrator. So then everyone can move on. They can move on and get through the day. So I think just the way that our staff is handling it and being so willing to do that with our students has changed a lot.
The only bad part is I've heard a lot of feedback on this stuff, not just at Central.
Yeah.
The other secondary schools too, unfortunately, you're the only one standing here.
Sure.
So it's tough. I know I'm putting you in not on purpose at least. So don't think this is all about Central, but I did get a lot of feedback over the last year from Central, and that wasn't the only place, but other places too, about the discipline. I saw the number of referrals that were, and I just wanted to preface this. I remember I sat here one time and said, Central had 3,000 some referrals last year. You have 1,700 of or 16, upper 16s. But then I saw those were major referrals, which is typically, from my being around a little, is about the amount of all the referrals they previously used to have. I also heard that as we move through the school year, having sat where you are too, is that there's usually a honeymoon period in the beginning, and that at least from what I heard, not just here, but there's been an uptick in the last, not this week, but the week before. So I think, from my perspective, this will be a time of examination is how are these new practices working when we get the uptick. It doesn't mean we're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean what we're not doing is right by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it would be really interesting to see 2 months from now how we were doing and how these things have worked substantively, because they're not going to change. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Things aren't going to change overnight.
Right.
But it has to be a process everybody has buy-in to. I think you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that we were lacking is really like truly building systems that started to run themselves. And I was just having this conversation with a staff member today. Like, the work is hard and it's heavy right now, but I do feel like we're starting to build systems where every person plays a role to make sure it's continuously moving. So that is something that I know we're going to continue to do. We know we're in the honeymoon period. So I think, again, we just really need to focus on building sustainable systems that collaborate.
I'm really pleased your team's looking at that triangulation of data because I think that's really important. I'd like to see there's parent feedback, staff feedback, as well as the disciplinary data because they all give us a different story. And then likewise, as you know, many times like you might have a few, like I would call your top 20 kiddos, which impact this a lot and your data a lot. So sometimes that makes a difference just by who we're servicing and what that looks like on an annual basis. But it'll be interesting to see, like you showed, do our kids have more of that sense of belonging with how we're treating them if it's less punitive and more restorative to try to get them what they need. So I'm excited to continue to hear the involvement for Central.
Casey, I just wanted to tell you, I'm glad you're here tonight because I talked to a sub who's in your school quite a bit and who has been in your school in the past, and he told me that Central feels different this year. He's seeing less behavior issues. The feels calmer, more positive, and it was an unsolicited, just kind of comment from him. So anecdotal, but I just wanted to pass that on to you.
I'll just ask one thing. When we had our meeting on this, I asked, and I don't have the answer, but we talked a little bit about, and you mentioned it, parental involvement in the process. Is there other ways that you're looking to involve parents more or differently than before in this new system to a lot of times when parents are involved, kids might react a little differently, right? And if there's other ways to engage parents in it, I don't know, but I think that would be a good thing.
And I think, I don't know if you're specifically talking to like the discipline or the school.
The
in general.
discipline side.
Yeah, so I think another area that we were lacking in sort of like a system that we did with every school was not really doing a great job of reentry meetings. So that's something that we're definitely focusing on, any suspension or we're gonna have a reentry meeting. All the people at the table that need to be there, so that parent is there, student is there, administrator is there, just to say like, we are welcoming you back in this building, we know you made a mistake, but we're here to support you, and you have all these other people here that are here to support you. So I'm hopeful that parents and students would feel like, okay, they're still welcoming my child back in the building. I can ask for help if I need to, and I know these people at the table are here to support my child. So I'm hopeful that.
Yeah, I think we're just interested in something. I mean, I think all this stuff is, whatever we do is wonderful as long as it works. I just think we have to just keep monitoring how the progress we're making is it working. And if it isn't, then maybe fine tune, so to speak, or do something.
And can I just share about Central? Today, I received a phone call from a parent at Central. And, sometimes when I receive a phone call, it's not with good news. But this particular phone call was with fantastic news. A mom who said that she was so nervous about sending her child from elementary school into middle school, and what was that going to be, and what was that going to look like. And she said that she was just blown away. She said everyone welcomed her child at Central. They welcomed him off the bus. They welcomed him at the doorway. They welcomed him again when he got into the building. She said his teacher has contacted her multiple times every week, knows him, knows her name, and she said she can just tell everybody in that building cares. So I would just say there's something really going right at Central this year, and I appreciate Ms. Getty being really willing to come in and dig in and face what's happening and make a difference. So I think it's been a fantastic start, and I think it'll be a great year.
All right. Mrs. Armstrong, did you want to talk a little bit about tentative budget for FY23?
Yep. So at every board member of your agenda, I gave you a copy of the preliminary look at the final budget and the highlights that I kind of summarized some of the items within the budget, just to give some context to it. You will see it is a balanced budget. Very happy to say that. It does include the early childhood expansion. It includes the facilities, master plan, and the needs assessment. It did take into account continuing some of the programs we had with ESSER, the permanent subs in our buildings, help with the academic support. It also included the new secondary intervention services that were brought forward in the spring, I think, last year. And some of that needed HVAC work that we already did and are continuing to work on. Those have all been built into this budget. We did see a very minimal increase in IMRF contributions that are going to be required for next year, starting in January. We're going up from 6.98% to 0.6%. If you remember last year, I talked about that. We expected to see that rise. It will probably rise again next year, and that is due to more and more of our non-certified staff reaching retirement eligibility. So as that goes up, our employer contributions go up to fund those. But we did not increase any healthcare premiums. We did offer and expand our dental for staff. They now had options for a low and a high option, which kind of, you'll pay a little more for the higher option, but that included that adult orthodontia, and also a greater benefit of, I think, $3,000 versus the $1,500 annually. But putting that onus on the employees that wanted that higher coverage ability, but still maintaining that we cover that single coverage for our staff members. We did continue to integrate into the new plan, is doing our textbooks adoptions as we have our normal schedule. Included in there are the athletic uniform rotation schedules that we go through, just kind of keeping our normal refreshing going. Technology is still in there to continue their refresh cycle. Some of that is still using that ESSER funds. We have digital equity grant, things like that that we've been using. We will maximize E-rate again this year for the funding of our infrastructure, our wired connections and network. That is the eligibility we have due to our free and reduced eligibility counts. So that does help with our internet and our transport and fiber connections. So we did, in the operations and maintenance funds, we obviously have some increase in purchase services because of the work that we're doing on the HVAC. You would expect those installation costs and capital expenditures to go up with that. Again, the majority of that is all coming out of ESSER funds. What I would like to do moving forward, once we get into this budget, is start providing the board a look at what is our operational budget with our grants and without our grants, so that you can see once those grants go away, what are we really looking at? Because once we hit this financial, cliff, really in 2024, September, when ESSER funds are all gone, we have to look at what we're planning to do and how we can sustain that. And that will be, this year, we've got to start looking at all of these positions, and we as an administrative team have started those conversations of what are the programs that we have taken advantage of during ESSER, and what are we seeing results in, so that we know where we need to allocate and what are our priorities to continue those programs. One of the things that I've always tried to classify ESSER funding in the academic side is it's to try to recapture some of that learning loss, but it's also the perfect opportunity for schools to try new things and see if they work. And you have this 3-year period that you can try it. If it's working, you determine if that's what you want to sustain going forward. But it's an option to take those chances that you just didn't know if you could really fund those or if they'd be successful. So I think we have taken a lot of those opportunities to really maximize and done a fantastic job utilizing the ESSER funds up till this point. Of course, as a highlight, ESSER 2 expires the end of this month. So Dr. Johnson and I are working very hard on making sure that is closed out. We will have 100% of our funds utilized for that final claim, and it will be nice to only have to concentrate on one of these grants at this point. We are seeing increases in transportation costs. That would be expected with the new contract, regular inflation costs, but also the addition of early childhood. That is built into this, where we did offer the program with transportation. Again, a lot of those are using the ESSER funds that the board had agreed to until we find out the status of the Preschool for All grant that hopefully we will be hearing about next month. So still having our fingers crossed, but we do know that if those things don't come to fruition, we have the mechanisms in place for that. Those are really kind of the highlights of where this preliminary budget is at this point. You'll get the DPI, or the DPI, I'm sorry, the ISB budget form, and the final version of all of this, of course, at the budget hearing, which is on the 26th at 6 o'clock. Right? Is it 5:30? Okay, it's 5:30 on the 26th. But we will load these preliminary documents onto the board docs tomorrow morning so that everybody can go back and refer to these handouts. They were not prepared in time for them to be available when we published the agenda. So I brought them as table packet, and we'll go ahead and get those loaded for everybody in the public to see those tomorrow. And this budget has been available in a non-pretty format for anybody to come and question or have questions on. I, as I did last year, will say if you have questions, you want to meet with me, you want to talk through this, my door is open from now and until the rest of the time, but really up until the budget hearing, if anybody from the community or from the board has questions, would like to sit down and kind of go through this, I'd be more than happy to make myself
And you'll post this, the more narrative one too, in addition to the numerics, right?
Yes, I will
Great.
do both the
I
highlights
appreciate
and the actual sheet. And this sheet, it really isn't as intimidating as it can look. Is your first page is really just all the revenues broken down across every fund. Second page, you have the expenditures. The third page gives you the last 10 years of what we've done in each of those funds. And then the last pages are fund by fund, exactly what is coming through in a little more detailed fashion for you. Any questions? I know that's a lot of stuff right away.
Yeah, I think I looked at your sheet and I liked the way you identified the ESSER funding part. I think I've talked about this 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, is that I think it's extremely important that we evaluate, like you say we're doing, and I think that's a great thing to do, is the programs, especially with the ESSER funding, because a lot of them, back when we first got this years ago, I said, we're going to want to keep them. We're going to want to not get rid of those. But that means something else may have to go, and to justify that going, there has to be a solid rationale why this is more important than that. And there's a lot of them on here with ESSER funding, so I think at the end of the day, even not having an exact hierarchy, but maybe having buckets of these are the highest priority, these are middle priority, and these are low-hanging fruit priority kind of things, may be beneficial to looking at it, and maybe decisions won't have to be. Maybe the state will give us a heck of a lot more money. I doubt it, but they might. You never know. So, we never know about things sometimes. So I just think now is the time where we really have to have a deep dive into knowing which ones we value the most. Not that we don't value all of them, but at the end of the day, we may not be able to keep all of them.
And I will say, we did see an uptick, I forgot to mention this, in the EBF funding by almost $2.3 million. That came as a little bit of a surprise, but if you, I learned recently last week that a lot of that excess came because Rockford bumped up to Tier 2. So they lost Tier 1 status because all the CPPRT money they got from the increases that everyone saw across the board actually bumped them into a Tier 2. So in about 2 years, they will come back to Tier 1, but we will already have our hold harmless level, so it won't negatively impact us, but the Tier 1 funding pool will be less once Rockford comes back into that. So that did attribute a little bit to some of the surrounding areas jumps in Tier 1 funding.
I think it's great we jumped to that, but I always think we have to realize is that in the past, our ability to go up was matched with inflation usually. We're not now. I mean, we lost last year, we're going to lose again this year. That with that ESSER money, we don't really have to think about that loss too much because you throw in the ESSER money, we're doing wonderfully.
Yep.
But without that ESSER money, with the percentage we've lost being tax limited, PTEL limited at 5% last year and 5% this year, based on what the rate of inflation was, we'd have been maybe not in quite as enviable position.
And that would be one of those strategic goals on Goal 5 that I have identified as fund balance. And knowing right now we're at about a 72.5%, and what I'm looking at is trying to maintain a 70%. Our policy says, 20% is great, but we worked very hard to make sure that we have those reserves. I don't want to deplete those, but that is why I'm looking at a slight drop, because we're going to have the removal of those funds, and what are we doing?
Any other questions or discussion for Mrs. Armstrong? All right. Upcoming contract renewals and reports are provided for your reference. Any further discussion or highlights, Dr. Shub? Okay. I would now like to turn the meeting over to Dr. Shub for the administrative reports.
All right, I'm going to start with my superintendent comments. And I wanted to add to those comments that at 10:49 this morning, I received an email saying that we are pleased to inform you that your grant application for early childhood has been tentatively selected for a fiscal year 2024 PFA. So we are through the first hurdle, hooray, tentatively, but it's really about meeting the requirements and doing a merit-based review at this point. So exciting news to be making it to the next round, and hopefully we will see a significant grant dollar award there. Very exciting. The rest of my superintendent comments, we had, and this will also be my first day of school comments, we had such a great start to the school year. Mr. Zickert's not wrong. There's been a little bit of a honeymoon feel to the start of the school year, I think, all the way around. But it really has been an outstanding start all the way across the district. I've been rounding with the principals. I've heard it from every single one of them. A principal just texted me on Saturday that he had seen a 50 referral drop from where they were last year at this time. I know they're seeing those drops across the district, and knock on wood, all of those things. We feel really, really excited about the start of the year. Our principals have been fantastic about really embracing, welcoming the students back, setting up really great expectations. I just feel like it's going to be a great year. We have also created a social media plan that is really going to try to shift our focus into celebrating the district on a more regular basis. So we have distributed leadership on that. We've created an email, celebrations@district100.com. Any teacher, any staff member can send pictures and a story, and Ms. Hadley will get that out there on our social media networks. We've consolidated our Facebook pages to try to direct everyone outside of the high schools to the Facebook page for the district to really maximize our voice and our influence. We are not posting on there every single upcoming event and things like that. We're really trying to post the great things that are happening in our classrooms every single day, and there are so many great things. EC has been off to a great start. As Ms. Mayville mentioned, there are some fantastic new classroom furnishings for our kiddos. Our team has been amazing. They've had a great start to the year. Our overall enrollment numbers, if you look at that 6-day enrollment count, we dropped 197 students, but we increased 113 EC students. So we are very excited about that. That hits our target, and we just screened 40 more of them, so we think we're going to push that number up. We still have space available, and we're excited to fill all of those spaces and get those kids in there. Our kindergarten teachers, as I've been out in the building, have really commented on the importance of having that pre-K experience and the difference that that structure makes for our students. So we are really excited about that. As you heard in the highlights, the governor came to Washington Academy along with many of our state legislators. That was very exciting. They weren't actually here to see us. They were here to see the U.S. Cellular demonstration, but we were glad to be able to host them as well. And that brings me to the end of our comments, or my comments. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
Just out of curiosity, was that, and I don't, maybe you could just send it to me later, is that the enrollment drop of 200 kids, was that mainly the kindergarten class being enrollment lower? I mean,
We
Or was
also
it
had,
just spread out
it
across-
is, it
Well, that's
really
spread
is
out a
spread
lot.
out.
Look, I was say, when I look at this, it looks like North dropped quite a bit.
Yep, the high schools both dropped.
Kinder was small.
Kinder was small.
That's why.
Hoping it's a little year and bounce back.
Yeah.
Blip. That
A
would be
blip on the
nice, that
screen.
would be nice. You will see also in the administrative reports, the RFP for special education that we've talked about, and the department highlights, and our regular information there. And that's all I've got for admin reports, unless there are any questions.
Any questions or further discussion for Dr. Shuck? Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
Member Herrera made a motion and Member Booker seconded the motion to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:47.
All right, that's pretty good. Nice job.